Hey everybody, welcome back. I want to extend a welcome to those of you that are new to the channel. I know I have quite a few new subscribers since the last videos that I've been doing, and also welcome back everybody that are returning. It's always good to see everybody. I've gotten some feedback on some of the other videos that I've done where people are looking for, what do we do about the insanity of the collapse of our economy? What do we do about the collapse of everything that we were hoping for and dreaming of when we were kids as to what our adult lives could potentially be like? And in many regards, I feel like we are mourning to some degree what we thought our lives were going to be. There is a process of mourning because you grew up with a certain expectation, which may or may not have been realistic. And then you end up mourning to some degree what you thought it was going to be like, and now it's completely different. The reality has set in that the economy is pretty much tanking, that jobs have now become something where they're just basically harvesting data. Every single time you attempt to apply for something, your data is simply being harvested. You're ending up without a job. You're ending up without any real change in your life where you actually become gainfully employed and end up building some form of a stable future similar to what, say, our parents had. So the block parties, the barbecues, the life where you build something with a family, with a committed, stable marriage, have children that love you, support you, have all of those things. For many of us, that has become something of a pipe dream, something that just probably will never, ever happen. You kind of wonder, would you even want to attempt to make it happen under the circumstances that of the circumstances of what we're just living under right now? Would you want to make that happen? Wouldn't it need to get, to some degree, at least a little bit better for that to happen? And in the mourning process of it, I guess as we come to the reality of this is a completely different time, the economy is simply not going to shift and fix itself. It just isn't. Politics aren't going to allow it to happen because there's no way to vote in and overthrow a lot of what's going on because the process has become so convoluted with everything from lobbyists and lawyers to everything just being completely tied up to where people that gain positions of power, they are there simply because they've manipulated the system to arrange all of this. Now, this isn't a form of complaining so much as it is a form of explaining what we're talking about right here, and then maybe a little bit of what we might be able to do about it. I watched a clip from Richard Pryor, black comedian from the 1980s. Great guy, loved his material for years, and he was explaining how he feels like the entire aim of everything is to keep people divided, especially amongst the working class and amongst people that are not in the elites. And this is coming from somebody who was a well-known comedian who had done quite well for himself identifying this problem. He's saying the intention is to keep us all divided so we don't ever become completely united and begin to actually talk to each other about our problems. And another point that I wanted to make with this is as we begin to kind of mourn what we thought we were going to have and begin to mourn what we thought what our lives were supposed to look like, I think we begin to realize that's okay. Being in touch with the reality of the situation now is completely okay. And the reason why I encourage people to cut loose of all the extra debt, all the extra bills, all the extra things that just, come at you. One of the major reasons why, and I'm going to tell you this, is a shift of mindset that you have to have about the way things work now. We have to change our mindset about the way everything works. I'm wondering how many of you have noticed this. I'm going to use it as an example, but how many of you have noticed certain higher end neighborhoods where even the people that are living there, they are under such a blanket of debt, such a complete and total blanket of debt. It's like a revolving debt that they've got going on where they owe so much money on the house. They owe so much money on the vehicles, on all these additional things that they're doing. And they have money coming in and maybe have pretty good jobs, but they are pretty much in a situation where If anything were to go wrong, they would lose all of it in a heartbeat. They don't actually own any of it, and they don't own any of their time. And it is easy, very easy, to put somebody like that, to be envious of something like that, to be envious of the situation and take a look at it from the outside and think, these people have got it made. They're doing so well. Why am I not doing so well? Trust me, it is appearance. Overwhelmingly, 99% of those people are in a state of revolving debt where they don't actually have anything. They appear to be almost like in an upper echelon of middle class that feels like they're not being touched by anything that's really going on with the rest of us. But the reality is they absolutely are. With my contracting work, I've done all sorts of stuff where with connecting with subcontractors, with different types of builders, with all sorts of different people, where I get to see a little bit of the behind the scenes. And that's actually, I'm really kind of downplaying it. I get to see a lot of the behind the scenes. Most of these people do not have the money or the success that you think that they do. It is an illusion. You are envious of something that is not even real. And that's the trick of it, is to break free of the illusion of thinking that people are doing so much better around you when the reality is that they're not. And, one of the reasons why I encourage people to pull back away from like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and some of these other places is that if you don't have the right mindset going in, you're going to end up surfing through those sites and you're going to end up seeing stuff that are the highlights of people's lives where you think they're traveling and they've got all this money, and you're not realizing they are in massive amounts of debt. They are traveling on credit, or they're in some of the women, they're in a bad situation with a guy that has basically funded their trip. And behind the scenes, it is an absolute horror show. It's an absolute nightmare. But you think that it's great because you've been presented with this image of something being amazing and wonderful. Social media has a tendency to do that. It tends to program us with, we've got all the highlights of all this great stuff, and look at all these great people's lives, and look at all these great products that you could buy that we're now going to push on you. And you have to be able to break free of that mindset. I had somebody comment and say, well, don't you have anything good to say? That's something good to say right there. You learn to break free of that mindset right there. You'd be surprised how much happiness will return to your life when you're not having your emotions manipulated and jerked left and right, up and down, all over the place. But you have much more control of just your mentality and your thought. I posted something the other day talking about our mental diets. What we're putting in is just as important as what we do with our bodies and our exercise. In fact, even more so, because our happiness, our stability, and our peace should come from where we program ourselves and what we're putting into our minds. And it is a direct effect of that. There's no way to go around that. So, kind of in conclusion of this video, one of the major points that I really, really want to make is that we have to build a framework in our lives. We have to build a framework with boundaries and bringing in the right people, focusing on what we're taking in mentally so that we don't utterly destroy ourselves, and also begin to realize that the things that you're doing in your life that are going to make things work for you are not going to be the things that work for everybody else or even meet the approval of other people. Much of what, especially the young men, but even now young women that are dealing with all these problems that are happening from our society, we have to realize that we cannot fix the declining birth rate. We are not going to implement something that's going to fix the declining birth rate. That is a problem that is way too big that you are not going to solve, that I'm not going to solve. Even banded together, even if enough of us got together, we're probably not going to fix the problem with the economy, that problem with the way society is pushing all the huge amounts of immorality and insanity on us, and fix everything with the government and balance everything to get it to a point to where healthy, stable family units begin to form again very easily, and birth rate begins to go back up because people feel comfortable in those situations. The likelihood of us just fixing all of that is almost impossible. There are ways for that to begin to go back the right direction, but that takes a huge amount of influence and just shifting of everything once people realize that certain things don't work. We can't fix all of that. We are not going to band together to fix all of that. The best thing that you can do is focusing on the things that you can change and adapting to the things that you can't. Shrinking your debt, changing the way that you look at life, realizing that living in some huge house with massive amounts of debt is not the same as maybe getting into a larger house several decades ago where there might have been a chance, because the value of the dollar was considerably higher back then, that you could pay it off, have a nice retirement, have this thing called a pension, which pretty much no longer exists anymore. All of that is now shifted and changed. So our view and our approach to it needs to shift and change. If you don't do that, you'll never find any level of peace in all the chaos. And that's what you have to be able to do. You have to be able to find peace in the chaos and in the storm and in the collapse. That's completely okay. It's never going to be so good that your emotions are going to just be completely fine with everything. You have to some degree shift your emotions to be able to accept what is happening and begin to carve out something for yourself out of that. So I know that doesn't sound particularly just flat out positive, but at the same time, it is the only way that any of us, those of you that are like-minded that are watching this channel, are ever going to find any measure of peace in all this insanity, is by carving out the things that work for us in this, when it comes to the economy, when it comes to the living situation. I've mentioned to many of you before, I actually pulled away and built a cabin. I used to live in a much, much, much bigger house. I would never in a million years want to go back to that. And I am telling you, the more you begin to break away from all this stuff, I am telling you as somebody who has been to the other side of that whole equation, the more you begin to break away from all of that, the more you begin to break away from having social media hit you with all the stuff that makes you feel like somehow you're inadequate because it's showing you a fluffed up life that isn't real. The more you break away, your happiness begins to return. Your stability begins to return. You start to appreciate the smaller things in life and realize that they are much more important than all the fluff that's getting sold you online. It really does change everything. So with that, I'm going to end it. Make sure to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. All of that helps the algorithm. And I appreciate every last one of you. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. What are your thoughts on what I just said today? And I look forward to talking to you all again soon. Have a great day.